I'll be giving my presentation over the history of basketball. Imagine you work at the YMCA and it's a rainy day outside. You have a group of rowdy men coming in and you have to give them an activity. Usually you would be out and about doing hiking or swimming, maybe even fishing. Today you're stuck inside. You look down and you see a soccer ball sitting next to a peach basket, and suddenly you have an idea. Basketball was created in 1891 in Massachusetts by a Canadian man named James Naismith. It was created based on the children's game called Duck on a Rock, and it quickly grew into a very popular sport. Duck on a Rock is a game where you have a rock in your hand and you throw it in an overhead motion onto a pebble sitting on a boulder. If you knock the pebble off, you win, and you keep tally your points that way. James Naismith evolved Duck on a Rock into a more mentally challenging and physically challenging sport where there were 2 teams of 5 players each, and they would compete to throw the rock and hit the duck, but they were just aiming it into a basket. The team with the most points at the end of the game would win. Basketball was first created as a source of entertainment, but it grew into a promise of equity for women and minorities alike. Women were allowed to play basketball before they were allowed to vote, and minorities quickly became the largest percentage of NBA players. James Naismith created basketball with 13 original rules. Those rules outlined the basic guidelines that basketball will be played by, from how you can throw, how you can take the ball from other players, to walking with the ball and other kinds of turnovers. He also outlined what a foul would be considered by and how it would be penalized. There were officials called referees that dictated which team would get the ball based on if they went out of bounds or if they went over the time allotted for certain things. The team at the end of the game would win if they had the most points. Current basketball rules have been modified a little bit from the way that they originally began. Fouls are now penalized, but with free throws. If you hit another player, push them, shove them, tackle them, they get to shoot free shots and get free points. If you make 5 fouls, you're out of the game. Or if you make intentional fouls, which are intentionally meant to hurt the other player, you sit the rest of the game. Other rules include a 3-second rule, where if you're in the lane closest to the basket for more than 3 seconds, you are charged with a turnover. Women in basketball have been playing since 1892. That's a year after basketball was created. They were one of the first groups the first groups to play in college, and they really got the equity they deserved here. Cinda Berenstein wrote Naismith and asked if it would be an appropriate sport for women, if it could be made more ladylike, and also help get them in shape. It was obviously modified. There were 3 sections of the court originally, so women wouldn't have to be too fatigued, and they weren't allowed to have the ball for too long because it might stress their fragile nervous system. As the sport progressed, the basketball court was then split into 2, and they were allowed to move more, and in 1971, they were allowed full access to the court like men were. Whenever that happened, they were also allowed to wear uniforms more like men. Originally, they had to wear full dresses and petticoats because it was considered immodest for anything more than the hands and the face and the neck to be showing. So, they played in full dresses, and there were a lot of injuries. But as the game progressed, they were allowed to wear fluffy pants and then the uniforms that you see today that men also wear. Minorities have also benefited from basketball. They play to improve their life by gaining scholarships to play in college, or by simply getting drafted to the NBA by being very good and making generous amounts of money for their skills. 83% of the NBA is comprised of minorities. Latinos have also made a large impact as of late. Players like Ginobili from Argentina and Nene from Brazil score high in the double digits, and by doing this, they're considered high-impact players at the highest level they can play. African Americans lead the NBA. 78% of the NBA is comprised of African Americans. 4% are Latino, 1% are Asian, 1% are other races, and the rest are Caucasian. There are lots of levels of basketball, starting from high school and working up through college, NBA, and other professional sports. In high school, it's popular to play because they can socialize and get scholarships for college. They can do this by playing for the Amateur Athletic Union, which is the AAU, and summer camps, which help them get scouted and recruited, and it helps integrate them into college life easier. College basketball is different from high school, and so is the NBA. In high school, they're allowed less fouls than the NBA, shorter quarters, and there's no shot clock. College ball is also adapted. It is given different rules. Men play halves and women play quarters. They have a shot clock now, and weights and practices are harder. There are two different leagues, NAIA and NCAA. NCAA has 3 different divisions based on how many sports play and how much money they're willing to give to their leagues. 3.4% of men will play college, and 1.2% of college players will be drafted to the NBA. Women's stats are comparable to this. Professional sports include the WNBA, the NBA, international, and the Olympics. And to get to these levels, you have to put in tremendous work, and it's the highest level. To conclude, basketball came from humble beginnings, but is now the second most popular sport in the world. It allows people of different races and genders to come together and to rise above and develop themselves in more mentally and physically challenging ways. Thank you.